man? The Denver Broncos, right? It's been such a wild season for them. Just when you think they're getting it together, something new pops up that makes you wonder where this team is really headed. You know what's crazy? Right now, we're not just talking about one or two things going wrong. We're looking at this perfect storm of changes, losing a key coach, questions about who should be starting, and yeah, a must-win game coming up that could make or break their whole season. Here's the thing though, all these moves they're making, they could either set them up for success or, and this is what keeps me up at night, they could be quietly heading toward disaster. That's exactly what we need to talk about today. We're going to dig into everything, this coaching shakeup, what's happening with Audric Estimé, these injuries that keep piling up, and how all of this affects their playoff chances. So, stick around, because this isn't just about one game or one decision. It's about the future of the Broncos and whether they can avoid a downward spiral. Let's get into it. What's up, everybody? If you're just finding us, hit that subscribe button. We're your home for everything AFC West, right here on this channel. Losing a coach midseason is never ideal, but when it's someone as experienced and influential as Mike Westhoff, the ripple effects are massive. This wasn't just any assistant coach. Westhoff brought decades of expertise, particularly on special teams, an area the Broncos have struggled with in recent years. His decision to step down due to health concerns isn't just a blow to the team. It's a wake-up call for how much stability matters during a playoff push. What makes this even more concerning is the timing. The Broncos aren't sitting comfortably at the top of the standings. They're clawing their way toward playoff relevancy. Every game matters, every decision counts, and having to adjust to a coaching shakeup in the middle of it all adds another layer of complexity. Now, the question is, does the coaching staff have the depth to fill the void? Special teams have been inconsistent all season, and now there's a leadership gap to contend with. If you're a Broncos fan, you're probably wondering how this will play out in the short term. Will the team rally and rise above the challenge, or will this shakeup expose cracks that were already forming? This leads us directly to the bigger picture, the moves the Broncos are making on the field. With injuries and roster decisions piling up, it's not just the coaching staff under pressure. Let's talk about the players who are now being thrust into the spotlight, starting with Audric Estimé. The ripple effects of Westhoff's departure extend beyond coaching. It's shining a brighter spotlight on the players who are now expected to step up. And no one's under more scrutiny right now than Audric Estimé. Fans are buzzing about the rookie, calling for him to take over as the Broncos' lead running back. But is this move a beacon of hope or a gamble that could backfire? Estimé has certainly shown flashes of brilliance. His performance against the Chiefs, a respectable 14 carries for 53 yards, gave fans a glimpse of his potential. He runs hard, finds gaps, and brings an energy to the offense that's hard to ignore. Compared to Javonte Williams, who's had a disappointing season so far. But the point is, it's not just about individual talent. It's about whether this shift aligns with the team's long-term strategy. Relying on a rookie running back to carry the offense is a bold move, especially in a system that hasn't exactly been firing on all cylinders. And, the Broncos' offensive line has struggled with consistency all year. Even the best running backs can't produce if the line isn't opening up lanes. And while Estimé has been solid, we haven't seen him face the kind of defensive schemes that come with being the focal point of an offense. Estimé is stepping into a role that demands not just skill, but also physical resilience. With every game being a must-win, can he handle the workload without wearing down? It's a question the coaching staff will need to answer quickly, especially with Williams potentially moving to a backup role. And that brings us to the bigger issue, the defense. Because no matter how good your running back is, it won't matter if the defense isn't holding up its end. While the spotlight has been on the Broncos' offense and the changes happening there, the defense has quietly been putting in some of its best work. And let's be honest, it's the defense that's kept this team in games they had no business being competitive in. Look no further than their recent matchup against the Chiefs. Despite the loss, Denver's defense showed they could slow down Patrick Mahomes, a feat most teams in the league can only dream of. But here's the frustrating part. The offense hasn't capitalized on these defensive gems. Against the Chiefs, the defense held Mahomes to just one touchdown and a few field goals. But where was the offense? They couldn't put points on the board in the second half, wasting a chance to pull off a season-defining win. It's like watching one side of the team rise to the challenge, while the other struggles to get out of first gear. This disconnect highlights the broader issue: consistency. The Broncos can't expect their defense to carry the weight every week. If the offense doesn't step up soon, even a top-tier defense won't be enough to save their season. And that brings us to a key factor that could swing things one way or another: injuries. Several players have been battling injuries throughout the season, and depth has become a real concern. The offensive line in particular has been hit hard, and we've already seen how those cracks have affected field goal protection. Hello, Alex Forsyth. If these issues persist, even a weakened Falcons team could pose a serious threat. And let's not forget, injuries don't just affect the physical game, they impact the mental game too. When a team is constantly shuffling lineups and adapting to absences, it's hard to build the kind of chemistry and consistency needed to win close games. That's something the Broncos have struggled with all season, finding a rhythm and sticking to it. But the Broncos have good news, if you can call it that. The Falcons are heading into this matchup without 8 key players, including several defensive starters. That's a huge advantage for the Broncos, especially for an offense that struggled to find rhythm. If there were ever a chance to test Audric Estimé as the lead back or let Bo Nix open up the passing game, this is it. Exploiting a weakened Falcons defense could be the momentum shift Denver needs. But if Denver can't take advantage of a depleted opponent, it raises bigger questions about their readiness to compete in high-stakes games. Are injuries just a bump in the road, or are they exposing deeper weaknesses in the roster and game plan? Injuries and inconsistency are tough enough to deal with, but when you factor in the playoff picture, the pressure ramps up even more. The Broncos are teetering on the edge of contention with their 5-5 record, and every game from here on out feels like a must-win. Let's zoom out for a second. In the AFC, the playoff race is brutal. The Bengals, Chargers, Colts, and even the Texans are all in the mix, fighting for the same wildcard spots. And the Broncos? They're hanging on by a thread. What's frustrating is that they've shown glimpses of being a team that can compete. A win against the Falcons would move Denver to 6-5 and give them momentum heading into the back half of the season. A loss, on the other hand, would put them in a position where every remaining game feels like a do-or-die scenario. A narrow win against a depleted Falcons squad might keep them in the hunt, but it won't inspire confidence. They need a convincing victory to prove they're more than just a team scraping by. With the Broncos' playoff hopes hanging in the balance, how the leadership handles these next few weeks will be telling. If the team falters, do they stick with the current staff and roster, or do they consider significant changes in the offseason? And if changes are made, will they address the real problems, or will it be another round of Band-Aid solutions? After everything we've broken down, the coaching changes, injuries, player performances, and playoff implications, the big question remains: can the Broncos dig themselves out of this mess? History shows us this team has been resilient before, but the challenges they're facing now feel different. It's not just about individual games, it's about the bigger picture and whether this team can truly rise above its shortcomings. Here's what gives me hope. This isn't the first time the Broncos have been written off. Remember last season? They started slow, looked lost, and still managed to rally in the second half of the year. Even this season, after a 0-2 start, they bounced back with a couple of solid wins. But hope isn't enough. Turning this season around requires action, and it starts with addressing the glaring issues we've discussed. Then there's the mental game. Losses like the one against the Chiefs can either crush a team's spirit or galvanize them. It all comes down to leadership, both on the field and in the locker room. Does this team have the character to use that defeat as fuel, or will it become the turning point that defines their season in the worst way? And here's the thing, Broncos fans deserve answers. They deserve to see a team that's not just fighting to stay afloat, but one that's playing with purpose, determination, and a clear vision for the future. Whether that happens or not remains to be seen, but one thing's for sure, this team has no margin for error. So, what do you think? Are the Broncos making the right moves, or are these decisions leading them toward disaster? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoy this breakdown, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel.